The next set of formulas that we will use are the half-angle formulas. Using one of the double angle formulas for cosine, let's solve for the cosine of x on the right side of the equation. First, I'm going to add 1 to the other side. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And finally, I'll take the square root, which will leave me with plus or minus 1 plus the cosine of 2x over 2, all of that is under the radical, equals cosine of x. Notice that the inside the formula is the 2x for cosine, and that is equal to the cosine of 1x, or that the cosine of 1x is half of the angle that's used inside the formula. Typically, you'll see it written this way, where it's 1x here, and then this would be half of that angle. Next, let's look at the cosine again, but this time using this formula, and we're going to solve for sine of x. This time I'm going to add the 2 sine squared to this side, and I'll leave the 1 and I'll subtract the double angle formula over here. Dividing both sides by 2. And then taking the square root will leave me with the regular single angle for sine is equal to plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine of 2x over 2. And again, because this is a half angle formula, you will see it written like this, where the sine of half the angle is equal to plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine of a regular full x over 2. So that is sine and cosine, and tangent is the combination of sine over cosine, which would be represented here as the square root of 1 minus cosine over 1 plus cosine. Tangent is also written in some other ways if you decide to rationalize the radicals here by using the conjugate of either the numerator or the denominator. Two alternate forms for tangent are 1 minus cosine over sine, or sine over 1 plus cosine. Those will probably be formulas that will be easier to use when plugging in numbers to solve. Let's do this example here. Using the half angle formula, let's find the value for the sine of pi over 8. Pi over 8 can be thought of as 1/2 of pi over 4. And so that's what I'm actually going to use in my formula for the sine. It's going to be plus or minus the square root of 1 minus the cosine of pi over 4 over 2, because pi over 8 is half the angle of pi over 4. Cosine of pi over 2, cosine of pi over 4 is 1 over root 2, or rationalized would be root 2 over 2. And simplifying all those fractions there would give you plus or minus the square root of 2 minus root 2 all over 2, which is still divided by 2, so that's a total of 4. And you can simplify that because you can take the square root of 4. So you would have plus or minus the square root of 2 minus root 2 over 2, and that 2 is no longer in the radical. We have to determine if it's plus or minus. It can only be 1. And if you look back and look at the original question, which is pi over 8, you'll notice that that's in the quadrant 1, where sine should be positive. And so this answer is a positive root 2 minus root 2 all over 2. Let's look at the cosine problem here now for 105. For the cosine of 105, again, you're kind of thinking about 105 is half of what number, which is 210. So my formula is going to be plus or minus the square root of 1 plus cosine at 210 over 2. The cosine at 210 is the negative root 3 over 2. So again, you have plus or minus. It's going to be 1 minus root 3 over 2, all divided by 2. Simplifying some of those fractions there, we're going to get plus or minus the square root of 2 minus root 3 all over 4. And then again, we have to take the square root of 4, so it is the square root of 2 minus root 3 over 2, and again, 2 is no longer under the radical. 105 is in the second quadrant where cosine is negative, and so this solution is a negative square root of 2 minus root 3 over 2. Try these two problems now. Pause the video if you need some more time. Alright, let's take a look at each one of these real quick. For the sine of 5 pi over 12, you're thinking that is this plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine, remember it's always cosine in the formula, of 5 pi over 6. 5 pi over 6 is root 3 over 2. It's negative. So with the negative and the negative, this is actually going to become a plus sign now. Simplifying the fraction. 2 plus root 3 over 4. And then we will have it as square root of 2 plus root 3 over 2. Again, plus or minus. 5 pi over 12 is in the first quadrant, so that is a positive answer for sine. Tangent, there are 3 different formulas you could pick for tangent. I tend to like the one where you have only the one thing in the denominator. 3 pi over 8 is half of 3 pi over 4. So I'm going to use the equation of 1 minus cosine 3 pi over 4 over the sine 3 pi over 4. Cosine at 3 pi over 4 is negative 1 over root 2. And so that's going to turn into a plus sign. Sine is already positive in the second quadrant there, 3 pi over 4. I'm going to multiply top and bottom by root 2, just so that I don't have to have the double fractions here. So top and bottom by root 2's, and that'll give me root 2 plus 1 over 1, or simply just root 2 plus 1 as a final answer. For homework, if you're in Mr. Bright's class, it's on page 183. In Mrs. Gutierrez's class, 191. You're doing problems 2 through 12 even, and then also problems 20, 22, and 24.